For this video, we're going to go over adding decimals. We talked about when we're working with decimals, how place value is the most important part. When we're adding up decimals, we need to line up the place values, meaning we have to line up that decimal. Because when we line up the decimal, it's going to make all of our other place values also line up so that we're adding the correct values together. So when we set up this problem, it's going to be 13 and 58/100ths. Directly under that first decimal, we need to put our next decimal. The 4 was in front, it stays in front. 9 is after, so it stays after. From there, we could fill in zeros. However, we wouldn't need to. And then we would add them. Something that'll be really helpful, either before or after we add, is finding an estimate. Because then we know, 1, our answer is close, and 2, our decimal is in the correct place because it's close. Or if it's not, then we know we would have to double check it. 13 and 58/100ths, if we rounded to the nearest whole number, that would give us 14. And we worked on that in a previous video. Plus 4 and 9/10ths, that would give us 5. And 14 plus 5 gives us 19. So we know it's going to be about 19, which is a 2-digit number, because the decimal would be at the very, very end. So we're going to add these up now. 8 plus 0 is 8. Each place value added. 5 plus 9 gives us 14. The 4 would be right here, so we're going to carry it up to the top. 4 plus 3 plus 1 gives us 8. And 1, there's nothing underneath it, so it's kind of like there's a 0 there, would give us just the 1. Because we lined up our decimals, they stay lined up. So we have 18 and 48/100ths, which, as you'll see, we have 2 digits to the left of the decimal in both our final answer and our estimate. So then we know that 18 and 48/100ths would be our correct answer. All of this done by lining up our place values and our decimals to do that. So let's try another one. 10 and 5/100ths. You'll notice in the first example how the one with more digits went on top. You can always do that consistently with addition, or you can just go left to right, which will help you when we get to subtraction. So if we put that 10 and 5/10ths on top, remember we want to line up the decimal, so we put the decimal directly underneath it. Grid paper may be helpful with your organization to line up these decimals. And the 3 is the only digit to the left, and 68 thousandths. You'll notice that the 5 and the 0 are lined up, which means we would want a 0 above the 6 and a 0 above the 8. And we could also put a 0 under the 1. So now both of those digits have the same number. It's addition, so we're going to put an addition sign there. And now would be a great time to estimate. 10 and a half, if we were to round to the nearest whole number, gives us 11. Plus 3 and 68 thousandths would round to just 3. So when we add up, it's about 14. So we know we want it to be close to 14. That's 2 digits to the left of the decimal. So then when we add these up, 0 plus 8 gives us 8. 0 plus 6 still is 6. 5 plus 0 is 5. We haven't had to carry anything yet. Gives us 3. And 1. And then we'll see that, again, 13 and 568 thousandths is really close to 14. Again, 2 digits to the left of the decimal. So we know that our final answer is close. And our decimal is in the right place. We'll do 2 more examples. 18 and 9/10ths. It's listed first, so we're going to put that on top. Our decimal goes directly below it. 2 and 12/100ths. The 9 is in the 10ths place. The 1 is in the 10ths place. We would have a 0 in the 100ths place because it doesn't add any additional value. And then that's going to line up with the 2 also in the 100ths place. So all of our place values are lined up. 18 and 9/10ths is about 19. We're going to add 2 and 1200ths. Well, 2 and 1200ths, the 1 would make it stay the same. So we're just adding 2, which gives us 21. Our answer is about 24. Again, 2 digits to the left of the decimal. So now let's add up our actual answer. 0 plus 2 gives us 2. Organization is super important. 10, the 1 would go here, so we're going to carry it up and add them all together, giving us 11. Carry again, and we get this. Again, remembering to bring our decimal straight down. There were 2 each time, so we're going to have 2 again. And then it is really, really close. So we know our decimal's in the correct place. You'll notice for this last example that we don't just have 2 digits or 2 numbers anymore that we're adding together. Now we have 3 of them, but the process is still the same. We're going to add these numbers by lining up the decimal. We have a decimal here, here, and you'll notice in this number we don't have a decimal, or we don't see a decimal. The number is 21, just like we did up here and here. When we didn't have a decimal in our numbers, the decimal would go at the very, very end, because this is in the ones place, the 4 is in the ones place, the 9 is in the ones place, and when we're talking place value, the order would be tens place, ones place, then we would have our decimal, and then we would go back to tenths, hundredths, and so on in both directions. So after our ones place, which is right here, we would have a decimal at the very end. So now that we've written the decimal for each of them, we can stack them up nicely. 14 and 9800ths plus line up our decimal with our 0 and 1 after it. Again, lining up our decimal every single time, but this time our numbers are to the left. And then we can fill in some zeros. We would want to fill in 2 zeros here for the 2 digits that we've had to the left of our decimal, and we'd want to fill in 2 zeros to the right as well in our bottom number, so that there are 4 digits in every single number. And then we would be able to add them up. Again, an estimate's always going to be helpful. 14 and 9800ths is going to give us about 15. This rounded to the nearest whole number would be 0, so we're not adding anything. And 21 is just 21. Again, here, even without the decimal, we're still lining up those place values. 15 then plus the 21 gives us 36, so it's about 36. So if we add up our actual, we'll get a 9 in the hundredths place, because 8 plus 1 plus 0 is 9. A 9 in the tenths place. A 4 in the ones place. 4 plus 0 plus 1, would be 5. And then in the hundreds place, tens place, 1 plus 0 plus 2 in the tens place gives us 3 tens. So then we'll have an answer of 35 and 9900ths, which is really close to 36. So this would be our exact answer. Anytime we are adding decimals, we need to line up the place values, meaning lining up those decimals. Line up the dot and give it all you got.